Sometimes it's just been so natural to us. We don't realize that you know, maybe a strong way to say it is we're cursing our future. You can curse your future, or you can bless your future. So be careful what you say. I think I love where you say we need to send out. Well, I think in that case, God was saying I am everything because I am right now. My mind is a different take on it. It is what follows the word I am. I believe you're inviting into your life. That's part of our message is you don't know what you know. God's dream for your life is bigger than your own. And that's what I've seen. I never dreamed 13 years ago that I'd be sitting here with you, or we'd be in the arena where I used to watch the Rockets play. And so Joel Osteen took $4.4 million in COVID loans meant for small businesses while living in a $10.5 million mansion. His church spends only 1% on charity. He preaches God wants you rich, yet charges $15 for tickets to hear him speak. His TV show reaches millions, but he rarely mentions sin or Jesus. We're normal people. It's just talking about living a blessed life, being a blessing to other people, being happy, having good relationships. When critics called him fake, he bought another home for $3 million. With declining attendance and mounting criticism, Osteen's perfect smile can't hide the growing cracks. Joel Osteen was born on March 5, 1963 in Houston, Texas. He was one of 6 kids in a home that revolved around church, faith, and family. His father, John Osteen, had already left the Southern Baptist tradition by then and started something new. It all began after a major shift in 1958, when Joel's sister Lisa was born with severe disabilities. That moment changed everything. John and his wife Dodie turned to faith healing and embraced charismatic Christianity. Just 1 year later in 1959, they founded Lakewood Church in a rundown feed store. It only had 234 seats, but something powerful was beginning. By the late 1970s, that small space had turned into a growing church with over 5,000 people. Joel grew up watching all this. While his siblings were either preaching or serving, Joel stayed quiet. He didn't want the spotlight. He preferred helping behind the scenes. In 1981, he finished high school at Humble High. Then he went to Oral Roberts University to study radio and TV. But after less than a year, he dropped out. He didn't want a degree. He wanted to build something with his dad. At just 19, Joel made a huge decision. In 1982, he left college and went back to Houston to help with the church's TV work. He started the television ministry that same year. He began small, 1 local channel and 1 national cable network. For 17 years, Joel stayed behind the camera. He produced, edited, directed, and even tracked what suits his dad wore every Sunday. He made sure every broadcast looked flawless. He wanted Lakewood to look as polished as any Hollywood show. While others preached, Joel kept pushing buttons, adjusting lights, and editing footage. He had no training in preaching and no formal education in theology, but he was absorbing everything. Editing hundreds of his dad's sermons taught him more than any classroom could. Even then, he refused to take the stage. His dad would ask him to preach, and Joel would always say, "No, you're the preacher." He told him, "I'll make you look good on TV." Then everything changed in January 1999. On the 17th, Joel finally said yes. He preached his first sermon. 6 days later, his father died of a heart attack. Joel's first sermon turned out to be the last one his dad ever heard. With no warning, Joel was thrown into the role of leading a church with 6,000 members. He didn't want it. He didn't feel ready. He had no preaching experience. Many doubted him. Still, something clicked. At the time, about 8,000 people came to Lakewood each week. Big for Houston, but not for the nation. Within 5 years, everything changed. By 2004, weekly attendance had exploded to somewhere between 25,000 and 30,000. That wasn't just big. It was the biggest church in America. And it didn't happen by accident. Joel doubled the budget for television airtime. He picked the best time slots in major cities. He filled highways with billboards. But more than anything, his sermons felt different. They were simple, uplifting, full of hope. People tuned in, and they stayed. The crowds got so big that Lakewood's 8,000-seat building just wasn't enough. Joel began talking about something that sounded impossible. He said one day they would preach to 100,000 people every weekend. Many laughed, but then came the boldest move yet. In 2003, Lakewood struck a deal with the city of Houston to lease the Compaq Center. It was the old home of the Houston Rockets. This was no small church hall. It was a 16,000-seat sports arena. The lease itself cost $12 million for 30 years with the option to extend for another 30 years at $22 million. But the real shock came from the renovation cost. Lakewood committed nearly $95 million to transform the arena. That's around $158 million today. It took 15 months to rebuild. They gutted the arena and added 5 floors inside. Waterfalls, miles of new carpet, 200,000 square feet of rooms, broadcast studios, classrooms. Everything had to feel new. People couldn't believe it. A basketball stadium turning into a house of worship. It had never been done like this. In 2010, Lakewood bought the building outright for $7.5 million. But the true shift came even earlier on July 16, 2005. That was the grand opening. The new Lakewood Church opened its doors, and every seat was filled. 16,000 people came in person. Millions more watched on TV. For many Houstonians, the place where they once watched NBA stars was now a church filled with lights, music, and positive energy. And the audience kept growing. Weekly attendance soon crossed 40,000. TV broadcasts reached an estimated 10 million viewers in over 100 countries. This wasn't just a church anymore. It was a movement, a media empire. And Joel Osteen was at the center of it all. What made Joel so different was his message. He didn't preach fire and brimstone. He didn't focus on sin or judgment. Instead, he talked about hope, about dreams, about believing in yourself and trusting God's plan. Critics called it Christian light, but his followers didn't care. They found comfort in his smile and strength in his words. He told people they weren't broken, that better days were coming, and they believed him. From the start, Joel knew the power of media. In just a few years, Lakewood's TV broadcast reached 92% of American households. That's almost every home in the country. Around 10 million Americans tuned in every week, and even more watched from over 100 countries around the world. By 2017, the church's media efforts cost $25 million a year, but they paid off. Lakewood launched a Sirius XM radio station. Joel started doing Night of Hope events in stadiums. Everywhere he went, tens of thousands showed up. And it all worked because his message was clear, simple, and positive. When Joel Osteen released Your Best Life, now in October 2004, most people didn't expect it to do much. He was a first-time author and a pastor, not a celebrity. But within just 3 months, the book had sold over 500,000 copies. By May 2005, it had passed 1 million. That alone was impressive. But then it stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for more than 200 straight weeks, almost 4 years. In total, it sold over 4 million copies worldwide. It wasn't just a Christian book anymore. It had become a cultural hit. The mix of faith, motivation, and simple hope connected with everyone from churchgoers to people who never touched a Bible. Joel's friendly tone made it easy to read. His ideas about living a better life felt real. That book didn't just make him famous. It changed how religious authors wrote and sold books forever. But Joel didn't stop with just one book. He turned his success into a full-blown business. He wrote over 15 books, and at least 7 of them became New York Times bestsellers. His 2005 book, Become a Better You, made him $13 million in royalties and advance money. His live events were even bigger. For every speech, he could earn anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000. He filled arenas across the United States and even overseas. He also built a huge merchandise business selling books, CDs, clothes, and gifts. Most of it sold through Lakewood Church's giant gift shop or online. Then came his social media empire. 25 million followers on Facebook, 10 million on Twitter, and 5 million on Instagram. These platforms brought even more attention, sponsors, and money. Then in 2013, Joel did something that no other pastor had done on this scale. He launched a nationwide arena tour called Night of Hope. These weren't free events. Tickets were sold. usually around $15 each, and people came in massive numbers. On March 11th, 2013, over 20,000 people packed Miami's American Airlines Arena just to hear him speak. The events often sold out in big cities like New York, Los Angeles, and later even in London. By 2019, he had filled Wembley Arena. These weren't just sermons. They felt like concerts. Music, lights, energy, and hope. The church spent $6.7 million on these events in 2017 alone, but the returns were huge. Night of Hope changed how people saw faith events. They were no longer small gatherings. They were global productions. All of this was part of a bigger plan. Joel didn't rely only on religious channels like most pastors. He went to the biggest stages in mainstream media. He sat down with Oprah. He appeared on Larry King Live. He went on Good Morning America. These shows reached people who never watched Christian TV or went to church. His 2005 interview with Larry King brought his message into the spotlight. And when he spoke with Oprah in 2012, he addressed all the criticism heeded, including the backlash to his prosperity gospel. He didn't talk about sin or rules. He talked about hope, success, and believing in yourself. His message sounded more like a motivational coach than a traditional preacher, and that was on purpose. This strategy worked. Today, Joel Osteen reaches over 10 million people every week on TV and in more than 100 countries. His podcast, social content, and appearances all spread the same message. Stay positive, believe, and never give up. That message brought him fans from every background, religious or not, and it turned him into one of the most watched and followed pastors in the world. But behind the scenes, the numbers tell a more complicated story. The Osteen brand brings in around $55 million every year. His church, Lakewood, operates with a $90 million annual budget. You'd think a big part of that would go to helping others, but only 1.3%, about $1.2 million a year, is used for missions and outreach. Most of the money goes to weekly services, media production, Night of Hope events, and administrative costs. Critics say this proves the focus is more on brand building than charity. And while Joel preaches about abundance and purpose, some question where that abundance is really going. Joel Osteen didn't meet his future wife in a grand church event or at a celebrity party. He just needed a new battery for his watch. In 1985, he walked into a jewelry store in Houston. It was owned by a local family, and Victoria is a young woman working there, helped him. She was studying psychology at the University of Houston and helping out at her mom's store that day. That simple errand turned into something much bigger. Just 2 years later, on April 4th, 1987, Joel and Victoria got married. Back then, Joel was still behind the scenes at his father's church. He wasn't a famous face of Lakewood yet, but this marriage became the foundation of something massive. Victoria's background brought a mix of faith and science into the picture. Her father, Donald, was a NASA engineer who worked on the Saturn rocket project. Her mother was a devout Sunday school teacher. Together, Joel and Victoria began building a ministry that would later reach millions of people. They've been married for almost 40 years now. They face pressure, public judgment, and the heavy responsibility of running a megachurch. But that small moment in a jewelry store, just replacing a watch battery, changed everything. Victoria's life took a dramatic turn after that. She was born in Huntsville, Alabama in 1961, but her family moved to Houston when she was just 2. Her childhood was shaped by the Church of Christ, where her mother taught Sunday school and her father was a deacon. After marrying Joel, Victoria started taking on small duties at Lakewood, like helping with offerings, but that didn't last long. In 2003, she launched a women's ministry at Lakewood. It grew fast. Today, it reaches thousands of women every year. Victoria's role on stage became just as important as Joel's. Her voice and presence connected deeply with the audience. She also became a best-selling author. Her first book, Love Your Life, launched in 2008 with 750,000 copies in its first print run. It debuted at number 2 on the New York Times bestsellers list. That was no small feat for someone who once worked in retail. I've heard it said, if you don't heal from emotional wounds, you will bleed on people that had nothing to do with it. Her story from a quiet life behind a jewelry counter to one of the most recognized female pastors in America is one of boldness, growth, and relentless energy. She didn't just follow Joel's path. She helped create it. Their children, Jonathan and Alexandra, grew up in the heart of that world. Jonathan was born on April 20th, 1995. Alexandra followed on November 9th, 1998. Both were raised under the massive spotlight of Lakewood Church, but neither stayed in the shadows. Jonathan studied radio, television, and film at the University of Texas at Austin and graduated in